Heart first leadership isn't what you say, it's how you show up, how you regulate, how you communicate, and how you execute when it matters most. We are Heidi and Ryan Sawyer, and you are listening to the Heart First Leadership Podcast.
Welcome back to the Integrated Mindset Podcast. I am Ryan Sawyer, and here with my beautiful wife, Heidi. We're here to just have an authentic conversation like we like to do. You know, when things pop up, we're like, okay, that's the next topic. We have a whole list of topics that we want to get to and different things that we think are going to add value. But at the end of the day, the most important thing is to say, like, what is the number one thing showing up based upon what we are traversing within our business and within our life. So to give you a little bit of context into today's topic, we are right now, about 2 weeks away from the maiden voyage launch of our Integrated Performance for Leaders program, which is a 12-week course where we're going to go through, everything from breath work and movement and mindfulness and mindset and personal discovery and nutrition and sleep hygiene and holy cow, all kinds of content, right? And so we have kind of left it a little bit broad to say we're doing this program for leaders. Now, if we were to really peel the onion back and say, where is our heart being pulled and tugged to really make the largest impact? It would be within the four walls of a home, within a family, right? To be able to say that if we had multiple couples in these groups, that would really excite us because we know the importance of each party doing their own work and having their own journey and kind of being on that path. And so what we're hearing is we have multiple people signing up, and we're like, and usually in the personal development world, it's I don't know what the number is. What do you think? 80%?
Yeah, I would love to see the stats on like a Tony Robbins convention. How many of them are women?
Yeah, I know Dr. Joe is at least like 70%, right? When Dr. Joe spends his retreats, like week-long retreats. So anyway, it's predominantly
there's
women.
More of a draw.
It's driven by women, right? This idea of self-improvement, self-development, right? Which I think is incredibly intriguing. And I might even share some thoughts about that later. So we're hearing where we have a handful of, it's mainly women that have been signing up for the program. I do have a couple of men, so I'm not going to say that we don't, but we do. But we're hearing from the women that they would love for their husbands to be doing this as well. Mm-hmm. And I also, to be authentic, I had a man about 2 weeks ago who signed up for the program and said, oh boy, I wish my wife would be into this as well. So whichever gender we're talking about, there is a common theme that one person is in a place in their life where they're diving in, they're ready for the next thing. They're really working on themselves. And the other person is kind of hanging back a little bit, kind of just watching, going, what is all this about? Maybe it's not for me. It's not the right time, or they're just in their way of exploring who they are and what their potential is and what's next for them. They just do it in a different way.
Yeah. We used to see that when we were doing nutrition, when we were helping people with their nutrition years ago, where one person would be like, yeah, I want to get healthy. I'm ready to do this. And then, their partner's ordering pizza, and it's tough to not have that support. Right.
And they're not ready or willing
right.
to change how they're living. Right. Because change becomes a little bit hard. Like habits are easy. Because they're ingrained into us. Like for us to continue to think and feel and act the way we always have, that's actually like hitting play on a program, which is living in kind of a patterned conditioned state. So like to actually change those behaviors, to change the patterns, to change the way we think and we feel takes energy.
Yeah. You got to break that cycle and install a new habit, a new way of being. And that's what the people that you're talking about that have come to us with this question, that's where they're at. They're like, I'm recognizing some of the things I'm doing aren't serving me anymore, or there's more for me in life, or how could I show up better for my kids and my team, whatever that may be. And they're starting to experience that unfolding of that growth within themselves, and then in the new possibility and the new perspectives that they're seeing. And they want their partner to, it's like seeing a beautiful sunset and wanting to share it with someone.
Yeah.
It's like, gosh, just come over to the window and look at this. It's amazing. But it's hard to get somebody to move because oftentimes their reasons are different than what yours are.
Yeah, their why is different.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we have this desire to say, okay, it's really the number one motivator I have found in the world is our kids, right? Mm-hmm. They put the mirror in our face, and it's what gets most of us out of bed in the morning to better our situation, because we want a better life for our children. So like that becomes an incredible motivator, right? But still, maybe one person is a little bit more aware they want something to be different, or maybe somebody is in a little bit more of a place of suffering or a little bit darker place. And so the reason why we know that it's so incredibly important for two people in the same household, in a marriage or in a relationship or whatever it may look like, for both sides of the street to be doing their own work individually, is because we have had the experience of both. We've had the experience where one of us, and in this situation, it was me, years ago, if you know my story at all, I wrote a book about it, called Choice Point, and the subtitle is To Break the Cycle of Self-Sabotage and accelerate your growth and realize your true potential, right? The idea behind that was that, there was a point in my life where I had the experience of depression and anxiety had compounded to such a level that it was quite dark and quite dense, and it became scary. And I was lost in it. I was lost in it. And so the idea of whether or not I was going to work on myself was basically, I was put to a place where I didn't have a choice, which is, a book that we're kind of playing with, the Choice Point 2.0, where you begin to actually create a version of yourself where like choice gets removed, but that's a whole nother plug later. So I got to a place where I was like, I'm going to do whatever it takes. I'm going to do whatever it takes. I'm going to uncover this. I started reading books. I started audio books. I started doing programs and certifications and this and that and whatever. And there were some components of that where you were kind of just watching from the outside, and other parts were, you were doing maybe some of the fitness stuff or whatever, but we weren't by any means, number one, at the same pace or on the same tracks. And really, I'll let you kind of share this a little bit more, but maybe you didn't see what you needed to work on. Like you didn't see, like, well, you weren't dealing with what I was dealing with. So why do I don't need to be on the same path that you're on. Like, this is your problem. This is your path. This is your journey. It has really nothing to do with you, or I'm not going to get involved in it really because of just where you were in life. Does that sound about accurate?
100%. Seeing, first of all, it's really hard to look at somebody's situation when they're dealing with something like depression or anxiety and have any kind of understanding of what they're going through if you have not experienced the depths of that yourself. So from my perspective at that time, I thought, well, yeah, there's something going on. Good for you. I would encourage you to go and do whatever you need to do to get right within yourself. But for me, I don't have that problem. So I don't need to do those things, was kind of the perspective that I had. And at the time, I felt like transformation was something external. It was like a physical transformation, or what other people saw, having the perfect home, all of these things that later created suffering for me, that later I realized, wow, putting so much weight on other people's opinions or how things are externally, or needing things to be a certain way for me to be okay, really was something that I needed to work on. But at the time, I didn't see any of that. And you can only really see, I think, what you're ready for in that moment. And then as your journey progresses, you start to open up to seeing what it is you are ready to move into. And sometimes that takes difficult situations to move you into that space. Yeah.
And so what we want to focus on is, because we're going to do a level of assumption here, that if you're listening to this podcast, it probably means you're the one who's leaning in and doing the work, right? And so we're going to shift our attention and our awareness and our conversation towards the individual that is doing the work, right? Because So you're on one side of the street and you're kind of being like, oh, he's over there and he has all these things that he needs to work on. And clearly, for this to work, meaning the marriage to work, like he has to get himself right because it's clearly not working with him in this place, right? This dark place and this place of lack of clarity and whatever else. So he needs to go do that. Well, I'm on the other side of the street pointing over and going, well, if you would just,
you would just do what I'm doing.
Right? Or if you would, whether it be career or this or that or whatever, right? I'm over there doing the work. And so now I'm seeing how you're not. And so now I'm focusing on how you're not doing the work. And that's now becoming my problem.
Right. Yeah. Doing the work looked like listening to audiobooks, reading books, learning meditation, learning breath work, journaling, all of these, just to kind of, for somebody listening, it's like, what do you mean doing the work? You're diving into all of this self-exploration.
Yeah, understanding the human experience, understanding how, where do my thoughts come from? How do I let them go? I mean, doing the work we could probably just
it's a pretty general term. Yeah,
but we should probably
just
do a podcast.
It's
legitimately like shifting your lower vibration to a higher vibration in one moment's time, like no longer attaching and identifying to roles and identities and past experiences, and like allowing for yourself to select new possibilities. I mean, doing the work is a
so from one perspective, you're doing that work for yourself, but at the same time, this dynamic was happening where you're doing the work, you're learning to let go of certain things, but then because of the new information that you're learning, you look over at me, in this case, your partner, and go, well, why are you not doing this work?
Well, because
are you not seeing what I'm seeing?
Well, when you begin to have these moments of liberation, let's call it, or a freedom of like a new perspective, you look over and be like, how can you not see this? Right.
It's like the sunset or something, right?
You can't see it. Yeah. You can't see it because you're not experiencing it. And it's so obvious that there's freedom in this, and that there's an answer in this work, and that this is the point of why we're here, is to grow and evolve and to heal past parts of ourselves and whatever else, and to become integrated and become whole. Right. And so I'm over there it's interesting because as I became more and more of a creator in my life and taking more responsibility, I was still staying in this victim mentality of saying, well, yeah, but now that I have found this new way of like attacking life and approaching life, I am now making you the matter with me because you're not on board.
Yeah. I wonder how many people.
So I'm still playing. There's a
that,
level.
Right.
What's that? I'm sorry.
I'm just wondering how many people listening can relate to that, because even as I mentioned before, if you're on a health journey, you're like, well, why are you not seeing that this is bad for you? And you should be,
right.
I feel so much better. Why are you not doing this?
Yeah. Don't you see how much better I feel?
Right.
Can't you see how I'm awakening to these unconscious patterns and limiting beliefs, and how I'm dreaming bigger than I ever have? Like, get over here and live in my dream, right? But you can't.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? What does that mean for you if you're in that spot where you are doing the work and the person across the table is in your mind isn't? Well, number one, first of all, I would say just do your own work. Right? This our biggest piece of advice, and we don't do relationship advice on this podcast, even though it may be kind of like showing up with us together, make it look like we're going to talk about what it looks like to, for a healthy marriage. Like, we're going to talk about becoming a healthy individual, which is going to lead towards an integrated relationship, because each of us are independently giving each other the space to do the work. Like, legitimately do your own work and realize that like life is about collaboration, not about competition. And it's not about comparison, and how I'm not going to look over and tell you that you should be. And this took me years, people. This took me years of realizing that I had to let you have your experience.
Yeah. And being the person who feels judged in a way, right? Some of that was me judging myself for what I wasn't willing to do. That's a hard place to be too. And that's a hard dynamic for a relationship. But I think what you're saying is when you focus on your own journey, when you kind of turn the mirror back on yourself and say, okay, like what is it that's making me need to change how this person is operating, and how can I continue to optimize what I'm doing instead, and be more accepting and gracious with that person.
Which creates an environment where then now it's easier and safer for you to lean in. My judgmental projection of you not doing the work is really just a judgment of myself not being all in.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. When you point the finger, you've got, when you point one finger, you've got 4 fingers pointing back to you.
Exactly.
Right. Or 3 or 4.
Yeah, however you want.
Yeah. It's exactly it. It's just, you're basically just mirroring something within yourself that you're uncomfortable with.
So once I completely was like, well, here's what I'm going to do to be a rock of psychological safety, meaning that I'm going to be able to meet my own needs. I'm not going to source my sense of being good enough or lovable from you, right? Mm-hmm. Which creates this environment where now it's safer for you to lean in and start to be curious about things, start to question things, start to kind of work on yourself a little bit, because I have no longer projecting this judgment upon you that you should be doing something different. Mm-hmm. I'm not sourcing.
It's the same thing with our kids. You know, we want them, we can't want it for them more than they're able to want it for themselves. And so we can just quit trying to tell them. It's something that we say all the time. Don't tell them, show them, right? Exactly. Show them what it looks like to be on a growth journey, to be going all in on yourself and showing up for people in the way that is aligned with the highest impact version of yourself. And then they're naturally going to want to follow along. They're naturally going to go, what's that book? What's that you're reading? Right. You know, what's that you're doing there?
Well, we can't underestimate the influence and the power of one individual who's truly all in and not judging or projecting, because legitimately you're going to change the vibration of that environment to such a level that the other person won't have a choice. Like the other person will just naturally, unconsciously begin to do the work in their way and get on. Right. And now we don't mean that we have to be on the same railroad tracks. It means that we have to be on parallel tracks to a certain degree.
Yeah. Let's talk about that for just a second, that parallel tracks. At one point in our marriage, we went to see a marriage counselor, and that was the best piece of information. I think that was the only real useful piece of information we got there, was this idea of not trying to merge with each other, not trying to become one unit, that whole you complete me idea.
Right. Which the Jerry Maguire, you complete me thing is person's going to, right. You don't need complete.
But rather than that, coming to the relationship, whatever type of relationship it is, whether it's your partner or a child or a teammate, you know, coming to that relationship whole within yourself and sure about your path and confident about what you're doing, to where you're not judging or projecting onto the other person, and then allowing them to bring their best self to the table as well. And then sort of running on these parallel tracks where, you know, you speed up and you slow down at your own pace, and you're doing different things at different times, but you're still right there as that support system for each other and your individuals. That's really one of the most powerful things that we got. Just that visual of those parallel tracks running together, but not trying to merge or be the same person, because we never will be.
And I think eventually, as you age and we get older and life slows down, the kids move out of the house, that there is potentially the tracks begin to, you know, come closer together. And I'll even tell you right now, like compared to a couple of years ago and today, like our tracks have moved closer and closer and closer together. But it wasn't because one day we said, like, we got to do this together if we're going to do this right or whatever. It was legitimately, yes, a ton of conversations to be where we are, but it was me allowing you to have your experience for it to be your choice, right? Because choice is, gives us a strong sense of who we are. And it's a basic human need, right?
We did an episode on the elements of an environment of growth, and that's a great one to go back and reference as well. But I think that also has to do with, when we're talking about these parallel tracks, it also has to do with as you progress together as a couple, many more of your life experiences are happening together, over a period of time. But when you're first coming together, you have a lot of past life experience that's very different. And so your perspectives are also very different. And there's differences with men and women and how we see things and all of those things as well. But I think that what you're saying about it naturally coming together makes sense, because more of your life experiences are in alignment with each other as you continue to grow together.
Yeah, that makes more sense. That makes way more sense. Yeah. So another point that you brought up was this. I think it's a very common experience or theme. And to certain levels, it's true. Like everything has two sides to every coin, right? The truth is always probably somewhere in the middle. That as your partner, my job is to kind of like protect you in a way, like for me to know what your, with lack of a better word, triggers are. And for me to try to not touch those. For me to try to be aware and careful that, like, oh, that if I said that or if I did this, that would trigger her. Yes. And that we can't live our lives in such a way that we're tiptoeing around each other. Right. Because those things that are creating a disturbance within you, like, that's something that is ready to be healed, seen, evolved, transmuted, right? So you can become more whole. So I'm not saying that I should make it my job to hit your shit, but I'm also saying it's not my job to not.
We are all leaders. If you're ready to stop waiting and start impacting your environment in a powerful way, we want to connect with you. Click the Book Now link in the show notes to book a call with a Heart First coach and discover what Heart First leadership can look like in your life and in your environment. Now back to the show.
Right. And when we tiptoe around somebody's preferences or things that are triggering to them because we don't want to activate something because we're afraid of disturbing the dynamic in the relationship, ultimately what we're doing is trading the disturbance in the relationship for a disturbance within ourselves. So when you're tiptoeing around, you're walking on eggshells and there's a disturbance within yourself because you can't fully express. You're nervous about saying something that's going to upset your partner or whatever. So really, which disturbance is more productive in the relationship? Probably actually allowing the thing to come out and recognizing that that is your partner's work to do, not yours. And then just stepping back and letting them handle it.
Well, because isn't that to a certain degree, if I'm almost kind of playing the rescuer to a certain degree, if I'm trying to tiptoe around your stuff. Now, if there's some sort of deep rooted trauma from a childhood, like, massive,
right. We're not talking about that.
Yeah, we're not talking about that. We're talking about surface level preferences mainly, right? I mean, to get us started anyway here, right? And for me personally, that one of the major things that I have and I continue to overcome is a level of, let's call it irritability, right? I used to be an incredibly irritable human being. Lack of patience. Like the idea of being patient was like, I mean, so I legitimately spent years of my life just creating a version of me that could actually experience the present moment. Right?
Yeah. And what we understand now about the nervous system and your past career as a collegiate football coach is you were constantly in that almost fight or flight zone. And so to be able to bring your nervous system back into any kind of balance was it wasn't the habitual way of being. So it makes sense that that was your mode of operation at that time.
Right. But here's what I want to get to is I can tell you numerous times where what motivated me when I started to realize the power of doing this work, what motivated me was realizing that you were tiptoeing around me.
Mm-hmm.
Like that broke my heart, that somebody else had to be careful of who they were being because of my past conditioning, because of my beliefs, because of my like disturbance, internal conflict that then now it wasn't safe to be around me because if you said the wrong thing or did the wrong thing or chewed too loud, right? Whatever it is, which I still have a thing about people who eat obnoxiously.
Yeah, then I just say deal with it. Deal with it. That's your problem to deal with.
That's your problem, not mine. But the problem is that I put my family, the people who I care about the most, my wife and my children, in some sort of a level of an imprisonment because, and I this is a real thing growing up where, you don't do that around dad, or you don't do this or don't do that, and I'm not saying there can't be parameters. I'm not saying there can't be guidelines that we live by for the children and everything else. But what I damn well know is I don't want my loved ones walking on eggshells around me. I want, and this is part of, in my opinion, my role as a man in the house. And I'm not saying it's not the role of a woman. I'm just saying from my seat of how I, really embrace the role of a father and a husband is, for me, my number one priority. Obviously, once the basic human needs are met, once there's a shelter, a roof over our head, and there's food on the table, is to create an environment where my loved ones feel safe. Right. And the food over the head, or the food on the table and the shelter, is a part of that psychological safety. But legitimately, my number one motivator is to be somebody who is a rock. So you can tell me, my kids can tell me anything without me blowing up and projecting back on them. And they still say, Dad, I hope you don't get mad about this. Like, so there's still, obviously, I'm none of us are going to be perfect. And I'm not saying that I am, but I'm telling you that this is my number one motivator and priority, is that for me to create an environment, what we call an environment of growth, where you feel psychologically safe to lean in, to be curious. It's okay to make mistakes. It's, it's one that builds up confidence and allows for us to stay calm in rugged situations. And that environment is where now everybody is growing. And then now, because you are that rock of psychological safety, because you've done enough work to where no one has to walk on eggshells around you, that's what allows for the relationship, whether it be the marriage or the relationship with the children, to become integrated, where you're able to show up authentically, fully, and even a little bit messy, right? And it's safe to be messy, right? Now, we're not going to stay in a. Doesn't mean that if we notice a victim mentality, like, we're going to call it out and we're going to pull ourselves out of that victim mentality. But because even I sometimes dip into one, right?
Where you're, just to clarify for people what that is, it's when we're blaming a circumstance or how we're feeling on someone else or some type of situation, and something or someone else is the matter with us. Yeah. That's what we're talking about.
If it wasn't for the politics, if it wasn't for, this, I mean, you could point fingers everywhere for the other person, because that legitimately, what we were just talking about a few moments ago, where I was saying, well, if she would just do the work, right? Stop thinking the other person needed to change. And then this would work out. It'd be easier on me if that person changed more. Yeah. You're taking less responsibility. That person would make life easier for you because, that's legitimately being a victim.
Yeah. And it's not your job to change your partner. It's your job to love your partner and create a safe environment for them to do that work within themselves. And that's really what I feel you did for me. And it helped me to realize that some of the things that I was doing, early on in our marriage, where you were saying kind of tiptoeing around, like, There's no way I would do that now because
well, you don't.
I don't. I don't.
Yeah, it went to the point where I'm like, I get it that you're standing up for yourself, hon, but like, geez, you don't have to like puff your chest at me. Like, I'm not taking that. You don't have to say that to me.
It's not my problem, right?
But I'm proud of you. That after I get past the disturbance, I'm always like, you go, girl. Like, you stand up for yourself. And that's incredibly inspiring too, right?
Well, that's my job. It's my job to speak my truth so that I'm not trading one disturbance for another. I'm not going to put myself in that situation, but it's also, my job to show up and be that example for my kids that, my happiness doesn't depend on somebody else and vice versa, like, it's not your happiness is not my responsibility. Mm-mm. That's up to you as an individual.
Yep. No, I hope to support you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I hope to add to it. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. But you can't be responsible for it in the sense where you're making it mean something when your partner's having a hard day or they're not wanting to do something. You just have to be able to allow them to have their own experience.
Yeah. So it's not my job to fix when you're having a hard day, but it is my job to be my own rock, like to regulate myself, excuse me, to not make whatever you're going through mean something about me, which allows for you to be in the experience fully. So it transmutes, it evolves faster, right? And you're now in an environment where you're able to have a hard day, and that's okay. Now, I'm not sitting here saying that we are 100% on this, you guys, but we are aware of it and we are progressing towards being able to create a safer and safer environment for each other.
And we've made tremendous progress from where we started. And I think that's an important point that I want to stress is that it's like you learn these things by going through it. And I think because our communication was the way it was in the beginning and the way that we interacted with each other was that way, we've had so much opportunity to learn and grow through that experience. And also to have that experience of, you, Ryan, stepping back and letting me figure out my own path with my growth journey and what books I was interested in reading and what types of work I was interested in studying or courses I wanted to take. And even within our business, within the last year, I went off and did my own thing. I did some business coaching and created a program and had success with that and created my own podcast. And that was really part of my own personal journey that I wanted to prove that I could do it by myself and then have it be a choice to come together and do it how we're doing it now, that was part of my process. So you let me go through that.
Yeah. Choice is so important. That word is so powerful, so like one of the roles of the individual, maybe who feels like they're somewhere a step ahead or above, like which there really isn't any, but from a perspective level, is to just stay optimistic. Like, I mean, that, and I'm not going to go into it in depth right now, but I spent a lot of time creating an internal environment of one that is able to receive the next opportunity or the next, stage in life, the next thing, the next experience, right? One that is able to say, I'm worthy of it. And part of that is staying very optimistic of the type of marriage that I thought was possible, but not so much like, oh, you had to be this way for us to have this marriage, but legitimately as broad as just saying that you are becoming more passionate and more balanced and more grounded and these different things, like holding that in a space of prayer and visualization, if you would even, go down that road, on a daily basis. Like my goal was not to say that, which means that you're doing X, Y, and Z, which means you're now meditating like I am, or which means now you're, that we're doing this podcast together or whatever else. It just meant that whatever experiences you needed to have to find what lights you up and to be passionate and be consistent and to be balanced for yourself and for our children, first and foremost, knowing that if that was the case and that was your experience of life, then it would impact our marriage in a positive way. So like for me, just to hold this optimistic platform for you to step onto, to say like that, this is what I believe. This is what I hope for you. This is what I want for you. Not necessarily to make my life easier. If it meant that I had to be more uncomfortable to make that possible, then whatever, I'll do whatever it takes. Because again, as a man or as a partner, like, and again, I'm not saying it's not the woman's job, but it's just what I own as responsibility is to create this environment where, whether it be for my company or whatever it is, create an environment where people are able to grow. Right?
Yeah. And also that takes letting go of what that's, like you're saying, letting go of what that's going to look like for someone. And, several friends of mine have kids that are approaching adult age. And it's like being able to kind of step out of the way and say, I'm holding space for you to create your life the way that you see fit. That's a hard thing for parents to do sometimes. And it's a hard thing for partners to do as well, because sometimes it means that there may be some time apart. Sometimes it means that people might go in a direction that you don't necessarily agree with, but just giving people space and holding that vision and having faith is really powerful, even to such a point that we've done that within our own marriage, where we've said, great, let's work on ourselves. And if we decide it isn't a fit at some point, like, we know we'll be okay.
Right.
We're just choosing this. And when it's really powerful when you can choose that every single day, when you can say, I know that you don't need me and I don't need you, but I want to be with you.
Yeah. We want to experience this life together. Like, love is not some ooey gooey thing that we feel because we both meet each other's stuff just perfectly in one moment's time, that like, oh, you don't hit any of my stuff and I don't hit any of your stuff. We're meant to be together. Like, no, right. It's waking up and saying, there you are, imperfect, flawed, human, and I choose you. And I choose me first, but then I choose you, right? I choose because I'm going to do the work first. You brought up something that it pokes something, because our kids are young and still very impressionable and think that mommy and daddy are still the coolest people on earth.
Yeah. We're trying to take advantage of that as long as we can.
Yeah. That's 9 and 8 years old. Colton will be 10 in October. But that is a part of the don't tell them, show them. So whether we're talking about either marriage or you're talking about your kids, whether they are mid-teens or they're into their 20s and they're making decisions that you maybe don't agree with, or that you feel like is leading them down a path where there's going to be, obstacle for them. And you can see it from your perspective, but you don't know what they're here to experience. You don't know what's going on inside, what they need to actually bump into to awaken, to heal, to grow, to evolve. There's no way of knowing. And I'm not saying this is easy, but the thing that we will always stay grounded in is that I'm just going to come back and do what I can control, right? And what I can't control is my own internal domain, how I'm acting, how I'm showing up, how I'm being professional, how I'm taking care of myself, how I'm leaning in to resistance, how I'm pursuing my purpose and my passions in life. And like, that's what the world needs to see. The world needs to see individuals who are not trying to follow the norm or to, stay in their comfort zone, but legitimately are leaning into whatever resistance is created by you following and figuring out, not necessarily, because you may not even know what your passions or your purpose is, because those things get flushed out as you do the work, but leaning in to figuring out, like, why are you here? Who are you? These different really profound questions that we unpack in our 12-week course. And do enough a work around where it begins to emerge naturally, because that's what the world needs to see. The world needs to see people who are passionate, who are purposeful, who are living life intentionally, because otherwise we just live it by chance. And so like that becomes, again, this integrated relationship approach to saying, whether it's my son or daughter, or whether it's my wife, or whether it's an employee, or whether it's the neighbors or the community, like what they need to, how they're going to learn and how they're going to be able to find their path and how they're going to be able to actually start to bite off what's next for them, is if you just continue to do that very same thing for yourself by just saying, what's next, what's next, what's next. And
we're always telling the kids, like, be the light, go into the school, go into the community, go into this basketball camp, whatever, and just be the light. Find somebody who needs some help. Find another kid who looks nervous and be the light. Make them feel good, and take your eyes off yourself and really just show up fully in every moment and do that. And it takes letting go of trying to control other people and situations and just focusing on what is yours to do in this moment and pouring greatness into that.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, that send us down a whole other topic, but I wrote a speech the other day just for fun. I don't know what it'll ever come of it, or if it'll just be like turn into a podcast or into an Instagram reel or whatever. I don't know, but it was the label of it was stand up and shine.
I love that.
Stand up and shine. And so let's come to a close here. And I would love to hear from you. Okay, we're going to do our takeaways and then some actionable steps, right? So what is a takeaway from today? What do you have? Anything?
Takeaway that I've had in my journey and I want to share with people today is that your growth path doesn't have to look like anyone else's. And that's important, whether you're the person who feels like you're the one doing the work, or you're the one forging forward, or you feel like you're the one potentially being left in the dust, right? Is that your journey can be your own, whatever that looks like for you. But just to do what you said, stand up and shine, do your best to continue to push those edges for yourself and get uncomfortable and question things. And question what it is that you want out of life and what you want your experience to be. And then just keep moving forward, knowing that your journey doesn't have to look like anybody else's.
You know, I love that you say that, because it's one of the motivators. You know, I kept a few things like in front of me as I was writing out the outline of the course and really trying to get very clear about what I wanted to bring forth. Is, of course, all the information and understanding the human experience and how to let go and how to like construct confidence in a different version of yourself and how to visualize that and step into that authentically and all these different components. But one of the main pieces that I kept questioning and keeping in mind was, I just want to shine a spotlight in a direction, say, like, just lean into that direction. But then now each and every single one of us has to uniquely take the steps and find their journey and find that path on their own, because there's no way for me to tell you what it's going to look like, what it's going to feel like, how it's going to work for you, what's going to resonate with you. Like, there's no way that that's ever going to be figured out. So the idea that each of us have a unique journey to be on, and it's going to look different. So you're able to take this information, you're able to take the practices, take the principles and apply them how they relate to you now. Like that's really, really,
and that'll change over time. And I always say, you know, to coaching clients and people that I work with, I say, you know, if someone's telling you they have like a step 1 through 5 process of how to do life, run, because that is a person who doesn't understand the individual.
Right.
And it's really important to have your own individual path. We all have different life experience and we're all unique. So embrace that.
Incredibly unique.
And embrace that for your loved ones too, and allow them to have their process.
Yeah. So one of my takeaways is to make sure that we notice and recognize when we're thinking that the other person needs to do the work or needs to change. Like, that's dipping ourselves into a victim mentality. And for us then to come back and to take full responsibility and to accept the worthy challenge of being the individual who creates the environment of growth, whether that's female or male in the relationship or otherwise, it doesn't matter. But somebody needs to be that person who's taking that step forward. So the other one can make a choice to lean into that or to not. But that one of us has to be the one who does the work. Right. And then to stay, my last one here would be just to stay optimistic, like to hold space, right? To hold life a little bit lightly, right? Like you like to say.
Yeah. Hold it with an open hand.
There you go. Thank you.
Yeah. I had a butterfly land on my finger. We were at the lake, and I've thought, I love butterflies, and there's been many times where I'm like, ooh, I'm going to see if I can catch this butterfly, and I'm going to see if I can get this butterfly to stay, and kind of grasping energy, right? I need it to be a certain way. But when you just open your hand and let it come to you and then let it go also, there's something really beautiful about that. And when we stop focusing on the absence of the thing, when we stop focusing on my partner's not doing it, or they're not doing it enough, or I wish it was different, and we start instead looking at the other side of the stick, we start looking at what you do want, the vision that you hold for that person stepping into their power, that person seeing new possibilities for their life. When you focus on that, then that becomes more of what you attract, instead of the absence of it. So that would be, I think, an actionable step, as well as to, like you said, Ryan, notice when you're in that judgment of someone else, but then also, instead of focusing on what you want them to change or do differently, focus on what it could be like. What's the possibility for them, and hold that space for them instead.
Okay, so let me do a little recap here. Let's go back to the takeaways for a moment. So accepting or acknowledging that everybody's on their own individual journey. Stop thinking that the other person needs to change, right? And focus on yourself. And then to be optimistic, like holding a worthy ideal, holding that space or creating that environment for the other person to grow. Actionable steps is for you to be forward thinking, be a visionary, and to actually spend time being clear about what it is that you do want to experience, was one thing that I heard you say. I also pulled out of that was for you to find, because the brain is going to be wired towards negativity, right? And so like legitimately we can actually train our brains to be more optimistic through journaling. This is one of the things that we do within our integrated human performance daily planner and evening journal. Is we have something in the morning and something in the evening, things that we celebrate and glimpses of goodness. It's legitimately like an exercise, like doing curls for the brain to be more optimistic. And you begin to wire yourself to see the positive or the good in somebody. And then that becomes what flourishes. So an actionable step as well would be for you to like look at the individual and actually find what it is that you appreciate about the other person. Even, because sometimes it's really easy to pick apart and to find all the things you would like for them to do different and be different and, X, Y, and Z, right? Here's my last actionable step. And this is to take full responsibility. Okay. So, and I would maybe after we hit stop on this recording, I'm going to come up and do this authentically with you. Okay. So in what ways do you feel like you have to walk around eggshells on me or around me? Right. In what ways do you feel like you have to walk on eggshells around me? Right. So now I'm asking you to authentically communicate to me in what ways you feel like you have to try to, because that's my stuff to work on. That's my work to work on. Is like, if I am making you feel like you have to walk around eggshells around me, like that is not a safe environment. And that's not what I want to create. Because if I feel like I'm the one doing the work, then that means that on a day in, day out basis, this environment should feel safer, not more dangerous.
So are you asking people to do this as an authentic action to have this conversation with someone? Is that what you're?
Yeah.
Okay. You guys, just so you know, we don't script these podcasts at all. This is all just happening in real time. So that's why I'm clarifying so to make sure that I understand what we're talking about here.
Because that's going to show somebody that if I came to you and said, honey, I want to know in what ways, even today, how do you still feel like you have to walk on eggshells around me at all? Right. And then for you to be able to for me to hold the space, for you to authentically share with me how that is, for me to take that and be like, cool, that's what I'm going to work on then.
Right. So asking for, what I'm hearing you say is like asking for feedback in a way that is a very open posture, for your own learning. Mm-hmm. And I guess the caveat to that is if you're going to send someone to do that as an authentic action, there needs to be an understanding that you're not going to snap back at the person with whatever they say, right?
Because you have to be okay with the answer. No,
you can't. Point. So in what ways? Well, what do you mean? I don't do that, right? You can't start an argument with it. It has to be really authentically taking responsibility from a very open, loving, and curious posture.
Posture.
Bringing that curiosity.
I guess the point of it is what triggered in my mind, Heidi, is more that I am showing you how willing I am to work on me.
Right. Through that action.
That's right. And then that's creating this like, well, geez. Right. And that's creating this environment where like clearly this individual is taking full responsibility. And, even if I don't like the answer, I'm going to sit with it. I'm going to unpack it and I'm going to work on it. Right? Because again, my number one priority is create an environment where you can authentically be exactly where you are, as well as you feel safe to project forward and create a different version of yourself, a higher expression of yourself, a higher impact version of you.
Right.
Because the more that we're both able to create this environment where each of us can just legitimately stand up and shine, like it's not 1 + 1 = 2.
Yeah. I want that so much for everyone listening. I want you to have that experience of feeling supported and feeling like a support to someone, and also feeling independent and confident in yourself. So I would encourage those listening to share this podcast with your partner, listen to it together, have a conversation around it, and see what comes up for you. And we'd love to hear from you if you want to reach out to us on social media or through our website, and just we'd love to hear how this episode impacted you. And if you're able to share it with someone, that would mean the world to us, because that's all we really want is for you to have the experience that you desire out of life, out of your relationships. And it all starts with you. And I hope that that's really empowering to you to know that you are in control of you. And that's the most important piece of the puzzle.
That's going to impact everything around you.
Okay, well, let's go do this authentic action. I want to have this conversation.
All right, we'll see you next time.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Thank you for listening. Remember, leaders go first. Alignment matters. And the environment that you create is the legacy you'll leave. We'll see you on the next episode.